intentional about the things you do, about the things you say, the choices that you make. Be intentional about everything in life. Be intentional.
Hello, lovelies. Come on in, everyone. Take a seat, grab a coffee, a cup of tea, a glass of water, whatever it is that you prefer to drink, but also make sure you grab a tissue. And grab a pen and a notebook because you never know. I believe there are a lot of wisdom that's going to be dropped today, and you need to buckle up because this road we are riding on tonight, is one no one chooses, but life happens anyway. You're all welcome tonight to Be Intentional with Cheska show. I am the Cheska of the Be Intentional with Cheska show, where we get intentional in opening the closets that are most often not easy to talk about or walk into. And on this show, if you have ever been on this show, if you've ever watched it, you know we get intentional. We get intentional with what we do, what we say, how we say it, and how we show up in our lives and that of others as well. So great pleasure is mine to have you all wonderful viewers here with us today, joining us. And as I always request of you, please engage us. Drop your comment. Click the like button, click the heart button, follow the page on Facebook, on YouTube, on Instagram. And if you haven't already done so, this is the time to do that so that you don't miss all the other episodes, the life transforming episodes that we are coming up with. But most importantly, do not forget to share tonight's live program. You need to share it with a sister or a brother. And if you didn't get to watch the first episode, hey, you've got to see that because we all need this. And tonight we're going to continue our episode on demystifying widowhood. Listen, in our first episode, our guest said, when your spouse goes to work or travels, you know they would come back. But losing them to death is as though they vanished. Those were her words. You wake up with uncertainty. Widowhood just comes. And it has changed the lives of women, of men, and of children as well. And so, gathered here today, before we go on, I give you a few seconds. Just click on the like button, share with a friend, invite somebody in, your questions, put them in. Remember, as we did it in the previous episode, if you have a question, you put a Q down before you put the question in, just so that I can be notified that somebody has dropped a very important question that needs my attention. And gathered here today are two beautiful, beautiful ladies who have had to wear those shoes of widowhood, those shoes that pinches so badly, yet gathered the courage and every strength God has afforded them to be here to give a very honest and candid account of how they felt when they woke up one day to realize they have no choice in saying no to wearing those shoes. And they have willingly chosen to help the intentional family in exploring what we can do and what we can do differently, how we can walk on this journey a little bit easier than probably they would have done, and how children are affected in all of this. And that's why I'm delighted tonight that you've chosen to join us. So thank you all other guests who have joined my main guest just for us to walk on this journey. And with me on the second part of the series on widowhood is Miss Samilia Bewa, a beautiful, beautiful lady who I don't know on a personal level, but I'll tell you what, the first time I set eyes on her was somewhere in 1993. I know she doesn't know this. And from afar, I remember her smile and graceful and warm personality. And I actually noticed her unique, beautiful name, Samelia. I was like, wow, that's a beautiful name. She was my husband's primary school prefect. And I'm talking about over 30-ish years. Yeah. And what surprises me is how they are still in touch, but my husband never knew nor realized she's walked on this journey until recently. And that is how beautiful a soul she is. She's that person who does not allow herself to be defined by what she's been through. So I'm going to read you Samelia's bio, credential, a summary of what we all can know about Samelia briefly. She is a businesswoman and author, a publisher of nearly 2 decades with over 60 books. Yes, you heard me right. 60 books, which are in circulation in schools across Ghana and beyond. Under her management, her company, Sage Literary House, has grown organically from selling one book title to her numerous books being on most private schools' book list every academic year. She's worked with NGOs such as World Vision to develop teaching and learning aids to help with classroom learning in both local languages and English. Wow. For years, her book series, The Judecan Adventures, was serialized in Junior Graphic in Ghana. Samelia holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Hospitality Management from the University of Missouri, Columbia, and a business diploma from Oxford Media and Business School in Oxford, UK. My goodness, Samelia, that is some credentials you've got for yourself. You are so welcome and thank you for joining us. But even before we go on, let me just chip this in. Did you get this far with all of these beautiful accolades and credentials before, after, or during this journey?
Hello, good evening, everyone.
Good
My name is
evening.
Amelia. Um, this, my life, should I say, I went through, I have a life that is before widowhood and after widowhood.
Yes, obviously.
Before widowhood, I was doing what I was doing. I was doing business, I was writing, I was publishing, and there was a period where my husband was sick. So for about 3 years, he was sick. So for that 3 years, my life came to kind of a standstill because my life revolved around taking care of a sick person, going in and out of the hospital. So it was a bit, I had a bit of a downtime during that time. But after my widowhood, I went through, he passed, and I went through the widowhood rights and everything. I returned to work a few months later and I continued with what I was doing. So I wrote
Wow.
more books, I published more books, I took more classes, I did what I had to do.
Wow.
So I went through. I would say the pre widowhood time, the widowhood time, and after widowhood time. But
That
the
is
only downtime was when he was sick. The three
okay.
years that I couldn't really do much. Yes, but after
Wow.
that, everything I went back to it and I continued the way I was before he got sick.
That is such an amazing strength you've got there. Thank you for sharing that. I thought I'll chip that in before I welcome our second guest because reading it, I was like, when did you get the time to do all of this? 60 books. My goodness, that is such a feat you've achieved. Well done. And
Thank you.
congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So, my
Yes.
second guest is Miss Dorinda Linda Mensa, another beautiful soul that I've known for about over 25 years. She's a friend who is turned into a sister. The definition of peace, humility, selflessness. That's who she is. She is a finance professional. She's worked with the gas industry in Ghana for many years and currently the finance manager with Deep Geo Ghana. A great Jesus lover, anointed for the teenage ministry. I mean, she's just got the flair for teenagers. And she's blessed with three J boys, and I call her D. So, D, you are welcome to Be Intentional with Cheska Show on our topic, Demystifying
Hi,
Widowhood. Oh, thank you so much, Dorinda. Thank you
hi,
for gracing
Jessica,
us with your presence. And
and
I
good
know that there is
evening.
good evening, good evening, good
Good
evening. I
evening
know
to
there
your
is a
cherished
lot you're going to
listeners.
share with us today. So we look forward to it. So thank you. Well, guys, if you are in and settled, as I said, if you don't have a tissue, you better grab a tissue. You better grab, I have a very big bottle of water here because you're going to need it for this time. I mean, reflecting on last week, I think it's such an emotional journey to go through. Thank you so much, Samilia and Dorinda, for offering to change lives with your testimony. But I would first, my first question, what's going to happen is I'm going to interchangeably ask the questions. And sometimes too, if I don't ask you the specific question and maybe I ask the other and you feel you have a bit more to add to it, I would love to hear. And I believe that our viewers would love to see various views or different perceptions on this journey. So, Samilia, I think my first, a brief background story, if you're comfortable with it, of how you began this journey of widowed and how long you've been on the journey in the first place.
Um, Good evening, everybody. I didn't greet you earlier, so good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
I started. I lost my husband on 31st December 2014. So I consider myself a veteran in this walk.
Hmm.
I'm going on to my ninth year as
Wow.
my ninth year. Yes. My husband got sick. He got diagnosed with a disease called ALS. It's a motor neuron disease,
Okay.
amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. It's a disease that your nerves, you lose function of your muscles,
Okay.
and you need your muscles to do everything, to move, to talk, to even breathe. You need your muscles. And with this disease, it starts from your feet, so you start losing sensation in your feet, and it moves on up, it moves on up, it moves on up, it moves on up. So he got diagnosed in 2011 at 37 because he was limping. So we went to see a doctor there, and the doctor was like, "No, this is not just any ordinary limping." After tests and numerous tests, it was found that he had ALS. We had never heard the disease before, and the doctor was like, "The medication we will give you would would slow the progression of the disease, but this disease will kill you."
Wow.
So we were told, but we were like, "No, this disease will not kill." I mean, we had never heard of it. So we came back, we did research, and we found out that really it could kill you. I mean, it did kill most people that it affected. And usually, from the time of diagnosis till you actually die, is you're given 3 years.
Wow.
And if you don't die from starvation because you cannot eat, you will die because you cannot breathe. It's either one or the other. Either you can't eat or you can't breathe. So the first time we heard it, we're like, no, we need a second opinion. So my husband's family decided to send us to India because India has a very good technology when it comes to medicine. So we went to India for a second opinion, and they confirmed what was given to us at 37, that it was motor neuron disease, and medication could only medication could only stop the progression, but he would ultimately die. But we're like, okay, this is what the doctors say. Let's ask God what He says about this. So in that 3 years, we drew close to God
Mm.
more than we ever thought possible. We held on to the hem of Jesus's garments,
Mm.
like the woman who was bleeding for 12 years. My whole family, his whole family, everybody, we prayed. There wasn't we just had to hear we had to hear there was a crusade going on somewhere, we would go.
Mm.
We had organized all night, we would pray. We would ask God, what is going on? Will you heal this man? But God
Mm.
told us a lot of things, but he was silent about his disease.
Mm.
Everything. God will tell us everything. I mean, we just have to pray. And then somebody will start talking. Then the pastor will start talking. Then we ourselves will start talking. But not once did God say anything about the disease. We went through it. We went through it, to the prayer, the asking, the hospital, the everything. But 2 years, 9 months after the diagnosis, he passed.
Wow.
He became paralyzed. He lost function of his legs, of his arms. And by the time he died, he was using an oxygen machine to breathe. We had to give him food through a feeding tube. He went through a lot. We all went through a lot. But even in the last days, we still didn't give up. We still believed a miracle would occur. But God had other plans. So on 31st December, God called him home.
31st December.
Yes. I was 36 then, he was 42 then. But God decided in his wisdom to call him home.
Wow. Wow. I don't know where to go with this now. I'm so sorry to hear what you've been through, Samilia. Wow. You said something so profound. We heard from God about everything, but he was silent about the disease. That is so practical. And for us all, especially coming from Ghana, Africa, we know that God is our first and last resort. No matter what, as far as our faith is concerned, we would hold on till the latter. And to walk a journey where, as you put it, God was silent. How was your faith after that? Where was your faith at that point in time, with having to go through 2 years and 9 months of silence?
It was silence about the disease, but it wasn't silence about anything else. So I remember one day in the morning, we had a routine. I mean, get him ready, take a shower, eat his breakfast, take his medication. It was every morning. And I remember one day I was exhausted. After I went through that morning routine with him, I was exhausted. And I remember sliding down, when against your bed, I just slid down and I sat there. And I remember saying, I am exhausted. Then I literally felt a cool breeze blowing on me. So it was silence about the disease, but it wasn't silence about anything else. God
Wow.
was with us in the fire. He was with us. We felt him. We saw him. We tasted him. He was with us. He was silent about the disease. Oh, he never once mentioned anything about the ALS. No, but everything else, he spoke. Everything else, he acted. Everything else, we saw his hand. But it was just about the disease. So, as much as we were asking God, I remember one day I asked God, Lord, why me? And I heard very, very distinctly, why not you? So it was a very trying time. Don't get me wrong. It was trying. But he was with us. And we felt it that he was with us. We felt it every step of the way that he was with us in the storm. So whatever we were going through day by day, we knew that God was present.
Mm, mm,
So I I remember when he passed, my neighbor, my neighbor had a teenage daughter who used to hear us pray every night. We used to have maybe 40 day all night or 21 days all night or whatever. And she heard us, she always heard us praying. And when he passed, he's like, after all this prayer, this man went. I felt sadder for her than I felt for myself at that time because she didn't see the walk we had through the trials. She saw from a distance. She heard the prayers. She heard the all nights. She heard the singing. She heard the worship. And she thought the outcome would be different. We all thought the outcome would be different, but God's ways are not our ways. His ways are not our ways. That's one thing I came out of all this understanding. That God is still God, no matter what we go through. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts about us is not what we think. It's far better, it's far bigger than we can even imagine. So it built my faith like nothing I have gone through. After my initial, Lord, why me? Oh, Lord. After the, why not you? It turned things around for me. Because I knew God was using this for a purpose. I didn't know what purpose it was. I didn't understand it. Neither did he. But he is still God.
Still God. Wow. This is such a life transforming testimony you've just shared with the whole world. And I'm personally sitting here and thinking, this is another level of trusting God's faithfulness in spite of that I have never seen before. And I'm sitting here wondering, would I be seeing the beauty of all of it as you are describing it? That he didn't say anything about it, but he didn't leave us. He was with us. God bless you for sharing that with us. Thank you so much. I'll just let you, I was going to ask another question, but I'll let you take a breather and I would move on to Dorinda as we go on this journey. This is, I don't even know the word to use. Inspiring is an understatement. But I have just sat here, listened to you, and I have just seen a glimpse of an aspect of God I don't think I'd seen before, but just seeing that through your testimony now. And I'm very thankful that you've shared this. So much thankful. Well, that's my sister I call Dee. Dee, I know a bit of your story. I don't presume I know everything, even though I was with you throughout the season. I'm still sure that the bigger picture, you know it yourself. And as Samelia was sharing her story, her husband was very, very, very young. Very young. She herself was also extremely young and still very young. And she's walked in those shoes. Dorinda, walk us on your transition from being Mrs. Osekre to now being referred to as widow or overnight as a single mom.
Thank you, Cheska, and good evening to your cherished listeners, friends and loved ones. Good evening once again.
Good evening.
Sorry, I'll say, Senior, I salute you. Hi. So I would say Mine wasn't sick. He was sick for some time and he's been home for about three.
Dorinda, I think we've lost you. Right. Um, I, I'm sure her internet is playing up, so we would carry on, Samilia, till Dorinda comes in, and then we'll
Okay.
take it from Dorinda. Samilia, so last week I gave an illustration of
Dorinda is back.
Dorinda. Are you okay? D, do you hear me? Can you hear me, Dorinda? Okay. We'll carry on till she's able to get through, and then so last week when I was speaking with my guest, I told her about a story somebody told me. Her husband was really, really, really sick, years of sickness, and she nursed him. And what broke her heart more was the pain the husband was in. It was just too much. She basically lost him even before he passed away. That was how it was for her. And the story she told me was when her husband died, her initial reaction was happiness and peace. In a way, she felt happy that it's enough. He suffered too much. I don't want him to be in that much pain. I love him too much to watch him that way. And then followed that reaction was guilt for feeling happy. What I'm trying to ask here is, what was your initial reaction? What was the roller coaster of emotions that you went through, especially within the first year?
I also felt an initial, I won't say relief, but an initial, he was in a better place.
Mm.
My husband was an exercise fanatic before he became sick.
Wow.
He would jog from he used to go and park his car at Golden Tulip. And I don't know, those who know Accra very well, he would park his car at Golden Tulip and he would jog to Kwame Nkrumah Mausoleum and back. And that was his every other day routine.
Wow.
He was an exercise fanatic. He enjoyed exercise. He enjoyed what exercise did to his body. So for somebody who was that active, to go from that to a
Hypertension.
wheelchair and being carried everywhere and being fed, there were times when he would be like, "Aren't you tired?" Because he felt he was a burden.
Mm.
And somebody who I would describe him as an alpha male. He was in charge. And
Mm.
an in charge person who's used to giving instructions, arguing, not listening, to him not being able to even talk properly. And most of the time, I remember this. I shouldn't say it's a funny incident. When we went to India, I had a way of carrying him to pick him up from his wheelchair.
Mm.
I'll hold him by his trousers and pick him up.
Mm.
No, I'll hold him by his back. I'll put my arm behind him and pick him up from the wheelchair. And when we went to India, you had a different technique of picking up this thing. So they'll pick him up with his trousers. And
Mm.
he hated it. And the first time we went there, we had an argument. So I was like, okay, let's see how these people pick you up from their wheelchair. And they picked him up from this thing. And I turned like I didn't see what was going on. And he looked over at me, Nanama, who's a girlfriend who may handle. So okay, I know how to handle him, so let me pick him up myself. To go from active life to total inactivity, can't do anything. And it's how some people are paralyzed, but they can use their arms
Yes.
or this one, he couldn't even use his arms. He couldn't even move his fingers. So to go from that to this, the day he died at dawn. I've gone ahead of this thing. He died at dawn, 3 a.m., 4 a.m. He called me. He was when we were he used to sleep in like a hospital bed right next to our bed. So he called me. He was calling me. He's like, Miko, Miko. He could his voice box wasn't what it should be. So he was, and when by the time I moved him from the house, we live very close to Leicester Hospital. From the time I moved him to the house, from the house to Leicester Hospital, and the doctors came to, I was like, they should try to resuscitate him. They are like, no. So they tried a few times. They're like, no, the breathing is gone, everything is gone. I remember when I came home after I left the hospital and I got back home. I'm like, you are in a better place. You've gone on to a place where you'll be able to walk. You'll be able to do things that you couldn't do on this earth. It's a better place for you. In my selfish this thing, I want you here. But you are in a better place. So I was happy that he had left this immobility that life had thrust on him. And he was in a place where he could walk, he could fly, he could do whatever he wanted. So, as much as I wanted him here, heaven was a better place for him.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear what you've been through, Samilia. And I'm sorry you have to relive it, but grateful that you would share your story to minister to all of us, because we all don't know when we're gonna go, and we don't know how. But to hear you say he's going to be in a place where he can walk on his own, run, and do everything he wants to do, that throws a different perspective. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. Dee, before I let you in, I would take a few comments that's come up just to see, just for us to take a bit of a break. May the Lord strengthen you, Samilia. I don't suppose that it's been many years, but it's any easier when you have to recall the journey. I'm sure it's as real as it happened yesterday. I've got Na Chocho Sakifio. She says his ways are surely not our ways. Bernadette Hoffman says he's still God. Gifty Bonzi says he's still God. Thank you all for your comments. If you have questions as we go on, please put it down and put a Q, and then my attention will be drawn to it as we go. Gifty Bonzi says, really sorry, Nanama, that you have to relive this to help others. I think for me, that's the most painful bit. It's not easy when you have walked a journey and relive it just because you're helping others walk through. Because I believe there is someone who is being bereaved right now, this minute, yesterday, last week, few weeks, few months, who doesn't even know what to do with themselves. And watching this is a blessing. For some of us, we will definitely walk this journey one day. And I believe we would remember this day. So thank you. Dorinda, good to have you back. Sorry, you
Oh,
went
thank
off.
you.
You were telling us about your transition from being Mrs. Osekre to being now referred to as a widow.
Thank you very much once again. Yes, I'm sorry for the interruption.
Don't
So,
worry.
um, my late husband was um sick for about a month, but he was recovering, and we had this opportunity to go do his PhD, his academic side. He learned everything. He was a chartered marketer. He was a chartered project manager. He was everywhere. He was a florist, building, IT, everywhere, all round, And so he was a sickle cell patient, but not SS, SC. He was a carrier, but his own wasn't very serious. Once in a while, he had crisis, you go to the hospital in and out. It wasn't that serious. But a month to the time his demise, he fell a bit sick, went in Yahoo, he was well, he came back, and I was going in and out of the hospital just for a week, but he was fine. And all of a sudden, after the hospital, we had his PhD scholarship at US, and we're all happy. It was something we've been praying, fasting. I mean, we saw the hand of God move in his life, you know, and the opportunity came for him to go. So on Wednesday, today actually is 5 years on Thursday, remembering him when he passed.
I'm so
So I took
sorry
him
to
to the
hear that.
airport and I said, God be with him. Yes, St. Pleasant Street, and that was all. So on Thursday morning, his big sister by then was in UK and wanted to meet me. Did a transition at Heathrow, wanted to meet him and say bye bye to him, but they couldn't meet. They were texting each other, where are you, what's going on. Apparently, I think he had crisis and he was detained a bit at Heathrow, and he went off and they resuscitated him. And the mistake I would say he did, or I don't know if it was divine, they asked him to stay. He said he'll continue his journey. And he had a chance to talk to his sister, and I didn't. And all that he was telling his sister was, this journey is God's miracle hand. And this is no one's testimony, but this is his testimony. And this is Mary had a testimony. He's very fun. He jokes about saying Mary had a testimony. So this is his testimony and his faith in God. Because there's something we really prayed and believed God beyond anything. So his sister was like, okay, I mean, I said, oh, I said, yeah, maybe so for maybe so for, cracking jokes and, I mean, but his faith was so lifted up, talking about what God has done and all that. So it was a list of anybody thinking that we wouldn't hear him getting to the US. So he died on his flight and reached safety, have his PhD.
He died on the flight.
Yeah, yeah, he died on the flight. So Friday, we haven't heard of him. I mean, everybody was worried. I remember texting the school, getting in touch with the school. No one was giving me anything. And um, a year ago, he went to Australia and had the same crisis. He was detained at the hospital. So my mind was, oh, maybe he had crisis again, so he's in the hospital. So that was where my mind was. So he died on Thursday, and Sunday dawned to Monday. So anytime I pray, anytime when he travels or he's in school, I sleep with the boys. No. So I would check my phone. Would I hear anything that, hi, Na, I have arrived safely? Normally, when he arrives, he just says, Na, I have arrived safely. So that was what I was wishing to hear. So only for me to call the school. So I had a message from the school on my email saying, Na, saying, Mrs. Osekwe, we've been getting in touch with you to no avail. And David's twin sister, she's a twin. So quickly I started, thank you, Jesus. So they gave me a number to call. That was around 2 a.m. So I quickly called the number, and it was the mortuary around Ghana 2 a.m. So I called, hello, the white, this is in services, how may I help you? So I started, please, I'm looking for my husband, David Okoseke. And all that came, did you know that your husband died on the flight? This is the
Ouch.
morgue. Oh my God, I started screaming. My boys, I wake them up. I believe it's my auntie for the past 10 years. So she came to embrace me. I started screaming, shouting, no, because it wasn't anything that you about death. No, because we believed God, prayed, fasted for this breakthrough. Because when we got married, he was always schooling, and I was doing a lot of the finances and everything. So when the scholarship came, he just looked at me, now you breathe. I'm going to take care of you. I'm going to take you here. I'm going to do everything. And we're always dancing every morning. And I was mostly her pastor, Every morning she wakes me up and says, yes, now what do you have for me? Then I'll sit him down and we open the Bible and I'll preach to him and we pray together and all that. So it wasn't anything I was expecting. Death, no, no, no. But as Samuela said, God is faithful. God is faithful. It hasn't been easy, but the Lord has been faithful. 5 years now, and we are moving on. The Lord has been faithful. Yeah.
Dorinda, thank you for sharing this. I know the story. I remember that night when you phoned me, but hearing you say it again, it's almost like I'm hearing it for the first time. Because I had met your husband the year before. You had been to UK with him, and full of life, always looking forward to this trip to the US. Like you said, we prayed. I remember I was one of the first people you phoned to tell me he's got the scholarship. I remember I was probably the last person to know you were on your way to the airport because I was on the phone with you. And just to chip it in, when Dorinda phoned me to say, I haven't heard from Nia, I was like, oh, don't worry. Abrochain SIM card, maybe onya phone, something. I just gave some flimsy excuse. Never in a million years. Never. Even when you phoned me to tell me she was dead, the first thing I did was go on to Google because I know people capture these things, and there was nothing on Google. So I said, oh, don't worry, I think it's not true. And I remember being 100% confident it was a mistaken identity. And I'm so sorry that you have to retell the story today just to get us through. The boys were very, very, very little. Samilia, let me ask you this. And we talked about it last week. There is this thing that when somebody loses their spouse, by the next day, or even that same day, nobody is going to say, Nana Majinsio, going to say Kunafor Neti way. There is the widow. Oh, this is the widow. Nobody would say, oh, Ken Irini, no. It's the widow. The widow. It's almost like it takes away your name as well and your identity. How did you feel about being referred to as a widow?
Growing up, I widows I saw were over 60, 65, 70. Kuna four, she wears black, and most of them wear black and never wear any other color again. That was what I knew. I hardly ever saw young widows. I didn't. Did I know? I knew a few, one man. So when I returned from the hospital, when I took my husband to the hospital and he was pronounced dead, I was wearing a very multicolored cloth dress. I remember the colors yellow, red, green. I haven't met a color I never liked. I like colors. So I was wearing the brightest of colors. And when I got home, my mother was like, "Sese deɛ kɔ sisan wo ho na pɛ wowɔ black atare bi akɔpɛ black atare bi hyɛ." All of a sudden, my life changed. We're wearing black. Everybody comes, oh, kuna for. And I was just saying, why you kuna? And why you kuna? And why you kuna? It just kept ringing in my head. Is this what my life was about? All I kept saying, I mean, sometimes they're not even talking to you directly, but they are talking to other people, but you hear it. And when people come, most of the time you are quiet. Maybe somebody else will borrow money, say, oh, what is happening and everything, but you are quiet. You are just observing. So sometimes you overhear things. So sometimes people will come and they're having a chat and they'll be talking and it rang a few times in my head. And I remember my little sister at that time. She had started ministry and she was like, Nanama, you are not a widow. It shouldn't be your whole story. It should be just one page in your book of if somebody is to recount your story later on, this aspect of your life should just be one page. That is not who you are. You are this, you are Nanama, that's who you are. A widow is just a transition. You went through it. Unfortunate as it is, that's what it is. So I think that talking to, sometimes you just need one person to point you in the right direction. And at that point, she was the one who pointed me into the right direction, that this is not your identity. This is just a transition. This is what has happened. It's unfortunate, but this is not who you are. And one thing I know about myself, I am a determined person. If I make up my mind, oh boy, nothing anybody will tell me will change me in the opposite direction.
That's right.
So once I got it into my spirit man that this is only the transition period, this is not who I am. Sister, oh boy, oh boy, this same sister who told me this, in her ministry, she started doing something. She donates to orphans and widows. So she'll come around at Christmas time and collect money that she's going to buy rice and oil and eggs and things to go and give out for evangelism. So one day she came, she was like, "Oh, Nana, my Jijiska." Oh, I'm sorry. I hope everybody can understand she a bit. I tend to switch.
Feel free.
Okay. It's like, oh, Nana, mami, Jessica, me kotomo, me bechiche and things. So she went around, she collected the money, and she'll come back, she'll ask me, I'm like, ah. She'll ask me, I'm like, ah. Then she was like, I don't know, man, and I'm saying, ah. any my if is a gas so me I just want which one I just want mommy be. Osinanama, they were famunti. I just want must see be our man because una would say the nipa crony fem. So widowhood, unfortunate as it is, we will go through it. No matter your age, some will go through it earlier, some will go through it later. But as you said before when we started, everybody will go through it. But we have to understand that it is not our identity. That is not who we are in Christ. When God created you, He didn't add onto your things. The gifts He gave unto you, He didn't add onto it that you were a gift, you are a widow.
It didn't
So
include
what
widowhood.
Christ hasn't said about me, I do not accept it.
That's right.
Yes, I have gone through
That's
it.
right.
That is not who I am.
I'm so glad I've paired you two up tonight. I don't know if it comes with widowhood, but last week our guest we had on it has got the same positivity, determination, and I know D is, I'm sorry to say, the most pleasant widow in quotes that I ever found. Sometimes I ask her, "Do you actually cry?" And
Okay, so that is said, do I actually cry? Yes, I do cry. But when it happened, you know, there was something that I told myself that I made a prayer to God. I said, God, I don't want people to see me and have pity on me. In Ghana, when you see a widow, ask them who you're more and that kind of thing. But I said, God, I've been praying for the soul of me to make it to heaven. So if me is with you, just give me peace to move on. Give me the grace. Let people see me and see the strength of God in me. So honestly, I didn't get people saying okranfo and that kind of thing. When people come and they greet me, I'm rather preaching to them. I didn't know where the strength
yeah,
came from. I was
yeah.
rather telling them that when any baby called, he knew the Lord. And his last words with me, then, Jinamidi, if you have anything to say, tell God. I mean, anyone in this world who does not believe in God is a fool. I have believed in God, and I want you to believe in God. For me, I am traveling, but put your faith and trust in God. So with that, it made my faith very strong. And that prayer I prayed to God, God give me the grace to move on. When I remember his old school came, corporate said, when they came out preaching to them, I was rather encouraging them. So you not see me in public crying, but in my closet, that is when I was doing all the tears and all the crying. When it happened, I really wanted to hear from God. About 2, 3 days, I hadn't opened my Bible because I just kept staring in the sky because it's like as if my faith was getting dwindled down, and I didn't know what to do. Then here was my Bible. I picked it. Here Isaiah 57 or 47. I'll get it for you. It says that why do the devout men sleep in death? I mean, that scripture was something for me. And yes, so for me, the kind of mommy. I just took the Bible and opened the Bible just to read something to, and here was it. And for me, that was the rima. That was the word for me. And that comforted me. Says, devout men lie in death whilst they are asleep. Why do the righteous are taken away and no one understands? No one seems to fathom that the devout men are taken away to spare them from the evil to come. And for me, that was the word for me. So I was all strong. I was there. And I remember some old friends of my mom would come and I think I was in denial. They would ask my sister, am I okay? Then I was like, I'm very, very okay. I know what I'm saying. And that was the grace God gave me to go through. But back forward, every morning I go on my knees to pray with my husband, my late husband. We always pray for widows. We always pray for people who are in distress, people who are. And I remember anytime I hear any bad news, I will come and tell him. So every morning, if you don't know the person's name, we tell God, remember I read about this person. And there was this lady who was working in a sister company. And she got married in December, and her husband died in July. And I was so, I used to see death as something, but my late husband, I mean, rewind my mind when it comes to death. I think the Lord made him work on me because when it comes to death, I'm so emotional, and the way I'll cry and the way I'll all he will just be looking at you and say, "Obi we thank God." I mean, why? And we say that more Christians, one person will call heaven. How do people get to heaven? You
Yeah.
know. So he started working on my mind when it comes to death. So I remember every time when we go on this, I said he was called Jifa. I said, "Me, let's pray for Jifa. I don't know what Jifa is going through." Then we'll be praying for him, not knowing I was praying for myself in just 2 months to come.
Ouch.
And I wasn't surprised the brethren were praying with me. People would just call me during down praying with me all over because I was also doing prayers for people with him. So the Lord gave me the strength. I remember at church, people could see me and then just stare at me. Because who me mobo, me ma who me mobo. Why you
Debbie.
come and say okrafuni we don't need. That's when I'm sporting me. I call you. I mean, you to me got okrafuni, and all because I prayed the prayer. God, I want people to see the strength of God in my life,
Wow.
and so that was my story. That is how I've carried it through.
Ladies, I
Yeah.
admire your strength. I admire your strength. It goes to confirm God's word that says that I wouldn't bring upon you more than you can carry. I mean, you people are living testimony right now of what God's word is. I'm reading you, I'm listening to you, and it's like scripture is coming alive. And I just bless God for your lives because this strength can only come from God. And during that, you said something very profound. I was praying for somebody, and in 2 months' time, it was my turn. That is a wake up call for us all. What you sow, you reap, because our time would come. And if we are praying for somebody, there will be other people praying for us. So God bless you. Thank you, Samelia. You said, that is not my identity. That is a transition. Wow. Please share this video, share this live video. There could be somebody out there, a widower grieving, feeling so lost, feeling this is their identity. They need to hear this. They need to hear and see these two beautiful ladies and testify that it is actually a transition. It's not the destination. Let's just take a few comments whilst we carry on. Julie was our guest last week. Julie, oh God. Julie says, Cheska, I'm here with my strong ladies. Yeah, we are rooting. There are so many comments, people saying, Nanama, well done, Nanama, bravo. I'm gonna be able, just because of time, I can't click on everything. Godfred Max Smith says, I'm humbled by what you've been through. Na Bernadette Hoffman says, Jesus, I'm so sorry, but thank you for the courage to retell this story. My goodness, there are loads. I'm just trying to select a few. Oh, yes. Dr. Bernadette Hoffman says, sadly, it's women calling ourselves widow. It's so true.
Yeah.
Looking back, I can't remember hearing a
Yeah.
man introduce a woman as, oh, here is the widow. It's actually we women who do that. So come on, ladies out there, let's take notice of this. It is not the best thing to do. We cannot define people by what they go through. Bernie says you are only a widow at one stage. You carry on in the journey of
Yeah.
life. Thank God for you sisters. Or for your sister. I think she's talking about Samilia, for your sister who encouraged you. Thank you so much. During that, let's talk about you as a single mom. As you were saying, you screamed that night. the kids were with you. You were just screaming. I know a part of the story, but tell us, tell your viewers, how difficult was it to break the news to the kids? What was the effect on the kids? How difficult was it to also be strong in front of the kids at some point in time?
Hmm. Thank you very much, sister. With the kids, I must say thank you to you and Ken. Gave me the strength. After a year, I came to visit to relax, my mind clear, my mind with the demise and all that. You guys sat me down. I hadn't informed the kids after 1 year because the kids knew he was traveling. So I kept them in the dark. Though the first one was 6 years, he knew, he was very close to his dad, and he knew what was going around. When he asked me, oh, daddy is sick, daddy has traveled, you know, because I couldn't, it was difficult for me to tell him and to tell them that their dad is dead, they are no more going to see their daddy and all that. Because every time we go to the airport together, he comes home, we pick him from his travels. And so there's no way I could come to terms with telling them it was difficult. But thank you once again to you and your husband. You spoke to me, sat me down when I came to visit in the UK. And so I had the courage now. So when I came back to Ghana, a week later, we had our morning devotion, and I called them and I told them about it. That I'm sorry to inform them that daddy is no more. The two couldn't understand, but the first one understood it. And actually, he knew what was going on because people coming in, going, he knew it, you know. But I hadn't broken the news to. Even during the funeral, I didn't allow them to come. I took them to my sister's house. We had everything. I wanted them to grow a bit because I didn't want them to be remorseful and all that. That was my mind, you know. So I told them about death. I told them what death is all about. Everybody will die. This body is made of sand, and everybody will go under the ground, you know. And I spoke to them about Father Abraham and all that. And I told them that he's finished his time, so he's left. And all of us will finish our time and we go. But God will bring them a new daddy. God will give us a new husband. I see the flame on, they started praying, God, bring us a new daddy. When is money getting a new husband? Can you imagine?
Oh,
They've sold you
bless.
already.
Oh my God. I'm telling
D,
you.
let me ask you
You
this.
know,
I hear you, and I appreciate how difficult it must have been to have spoken to them or broken the news to them. I can't, even though you would say I encouraged you and guided you, I can't presume to understand how difficult that was, breaking the news to them. um Now I know better, and yes, I would think that maybe people can do it in their own time. I don't know. But as we are saying, your screaming and everything was in their presence. It just happened, and people were trooping and going out, and kids being kids. I mean, sometimes we underestimate them. They are aware of what's going on. They can hear, they can understand. But it was difficult. It was very, very difficult. How do you tell a child that your father who sat in an aeroplane died in an aeroplane? Like, I think it would traumatize even the child every time. And I think that's what even happened with you. Because by the time you were coming back to us in UK, they were actually traumatized, wanting to hear from you every minute to be sure that you've arrived safely. But let me ask you, looking
yeah,
back,
yeah.
do you think you would still have kept them in the dark, or you would have done it earlier than you did?
Looking back, I would have done it earlier than I did. Yeah, because um, after 2 years, I took them to the cemetery. You know, my mother-in-law also died. His mother also died. together with the family, went to the cemetery. And when we were going, my son was like, Mommy, when I go, I'll shout, I'll scream, I'll do. I'm like, Jason, I want you to do everything. Just cry, just scream, just do everything you want to. I went to the cemetery. He just went to stand behind his tomb, was just staring at his picture on his tomb very quietly. Like, Jason, do you want to scream again? Say, Mommy, no. So do you want to shout, Mommy, I am okay? So for him, just seeing the tomb of his dad was the closure for him. So I came back and was like, oh no, I should have done this earlier. But earlier, I don't know, but I didn't have the strength for my
Yeah.
kids to see their dad lying
Yeah.
there and all that. Honestly, I didn't have the strength. I didn't want them to feel remorseful, to feel bitter. I wanted to go through it alone. You understand?
Yeah.
Probably I thought they were young, but the first one knew what was going on. He knew everything. So
Yeah.
probably I would have done it
Yeah. I'm
earlier.
glad you said
But
that. And
all the same,
I don't think you
I'm
were
happy
wrong.
I took them.
I don't think you were wrong too either, because nobody has a manual about being a widow. Nobody tells you what it is like to be widowed overnight and have kids and how you break news. I don't even know if there is a book that tells you that. So I don't think you were wrong at that time. You did what you knew best for them and what your strength could do, because there was a lot to deal with in that moment anyway. And obviously you thought you were protecting your kids as well, so I mean, parents, you don't want to see your child hurting. So I don't think you were wrong, but I'm glad that reflecting back, you thought you would do otherwise, which I think being out there, somebody else could also give it a thought, because I don't think I have even thought about it myself, that would I be able to break it to my kids or not? Do you know what I mean? Unless it happens to you, you don't know. So I don't think you were wrong. Samelia, sorry, if I may ask, what was the name of your late husband?
Kweku Bewa.
Kweku. Kweku. Did you and Kweku have any kids at all, if I may
No,
ask? Okay.
no. He had two kids before me,
Right.
but we didn't have any
Okay.
kids together.
Okay. All right then.
And
So, mhm.
unfortunately, he died on his daughter's birthday.
Oh,
Oh my God,
Yes, it was
so
her
sorry.
18th birthday.
as if death
Oh
was
no.
not enough, painful enough. Do you know what I mean? And then it was 31st December, you mean the last day of the year, so memorable. And then daughter's 18th birthday.
Yeah.
Samilia, that's one level of trauma you two have been through. It's May the Lord continue to strengthen you. That's all I can say, because this is a hard journey you've been through. But I ask this because sometimes, in people's attempt to console each other, they say things like, oh, at least you didn't have children, so you can move on easily. Do you think there is any sense in that statement people make? Is it a legitimate statement for people to make? Because I tend to think that, how do you know if the person would have preferred it otherwise?
Everybody's different.
Exactly.
Some people, the children help them heal.
Mm,
For
mm,
others, maybe the absence of children also helps heal.
mm.
So everybody is different.
Yeah.
And I think every situation is unique. So
Mm,
you make use of whatever situation you have and work with it.
that's right.
So for somebody like Dorinda, maybe it's cuddling her children every night
Mm,
that helps her feel a certain healing, and having her children look up to her and be like, okay, somebody needs me, also pushing her out of the door. You know,
Yeah, you're right.
it could be, you get it. And for me, it is, I always say that maybe if God knew me and knew that maybe if he had given me children, I would have become too comfortable in my zone and be like, okay, I worry maybe, because women too, we get comfortable in our
yeah,
singleness.
yeah.
I mean, you have the whole bed to yourself. You can sleep anywhere. You don't have a man in your armpit.
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. So maybe I
Snoring.
keep telling my
Snoring as
I keep,
well.
yes, snoring. So I keep telling my friends that if God had given me children earlier, maybe I would have become too comfortable. I'd be like, you know what, let me take care of my children and forget all these marriage issues.
Yes. Yes.
But every journey is different. Everybody's journey is different.
Wow.
So you work with whatever you're given, and then you move on with it.
Every journey is different. Everybody is different. That is so profound to put out there because everybody and what would have worked for them.
Yeah.
So if we can afford not to be saying things like that to people because we wouldn't know
No.
what the person would have wanted. Thank you so much for sharing that. Talking of grief, not sometimes, grief has a mind of its own. Do you still hear me? Because something has just gone off. Do you hear me? Okay. Hello?
Hi.
Samilia, do you hear me? I think Samilia is frozen. Yeah, I've lost her. Okay, during that, grief has a mind of its own. Sometimes it just happens. You will think you're okay, and then from nowhere, it just hits you. Today is 5 years since you walked on this journey. Within that 5 years, which specific year in the 5 years would you say has been more challenging to deal with?
Hmm. Well, first, that was 2 years ago when I lost my job.
Ah,
You know, yeah, it was very challenging, and I had to come home. I have been ever since we got married. I've been very busy, work, work, work. Come home, close at 6, get home by 8, 9. He comes to pick me, and so it has been work, 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 work. So coming back home, and I have to deal with the kids all alone. You know, back before the 2 years I lost my job, Auntie would cook, and then we'll cook evening supper, I'll cook there. So when I come, I just talk to me, take me from work, we talk, we come, supper is ready, everything is ready. Now it's like, now this is you. After 2 years, you have to face it all alone. No one to chat with, no one to talk to, nothing. You understand? Having to do with the finance aspect. And when he was alive, we were building, have to continue the building. So there was a lot of things that he would have been doing. But now I have to come to the forefront and be doing all that. It was very challenging. But in all of that, the Lord was good. Yeah.
in all of that, the Lord was good. What do you wish you did more with your husband, your late husband? And what is the biggest thing you feel that you've lost losing him?
Okay. So what I think winding back, we'd have had more time for ourselves, traveling, having, because it's like we are two different individuals coming to meet. We were married for only 7 years. So before the 7 years, we were now getting to really know ourselves because he was a complete different person and I was a different person. So kids just started coming. So the relationship wasn't all that rosy. So it was just a year before he passed. That was when we really gotten to know ourselves, gotten to, be very intimate, love ourselves, having all the plans, what we want to do. And I would always say that I found a friend, a counselor, a brother, and a husband, you know. So we were into each other, and this is the time that we're really going to enjoy the relationship. And that was all of a sudden, man, here was I alone. So winding back the clock, would have spent more time because he was always doing his research, schooling, doing this course, doing that. I was also busy working and all that. So we just have time on weekends and holidays for each other because of kids. All your attention are drawn to the kids. But a year before his demise, that was when we really bonded. We really got closer. We're having all this wild imagination going here, being closer and all that. And then, everything went. Yeah.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you wish you had was to have spent more time together. Is that right?
Yes. So I spent
More time together.
more time together. Yeah.
Samilia, welcome back. Thank you for being joining back with us again. I was just asking Dorinda what has been most difficult about widowhood, or which of the years have been the most difficult, and also what would she have wished she did with her husband more if she still had him.
If I had more time,
More time. Wow.
more time, created more memories, because now it's those memories that when it comes, you smile, you smile because you remember something, and you wish there were more of those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you wish for the more time.
Mm,
When this happens, that's when you realize that it's nothing else matters. It's not about the house or the
mm,
car or it doesn't matter. It's the quality time that you spend with each other.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
time,
More time. More
more
time.
time to make more memories.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think even with hearing you say it, we still don't realize the significance of it till we get to walk in the shoes, which is usually too late because both of you have said the same thing. And I'm sitting here thinking, if you two are saying no money, not going around doing anything, but spending more time, what actually is stopping those who still have their spouses with them from spending more time? So if you're watching us, wherever you watch it, Facebook, YouTube, if you don't get to take anything today, I'll just plead with you to be intentional about spending more time, because last week in our first episode we had the same thing from our guest. It doesn't have to take that for us to realize, and that is why we've put this program together, just so that we can make our journey when it comes a little less steep than it's supposed to be, or than it usually will be. So thank you so much, ladies, for sharing this with us. It's it's been inspiring. Yes, it has been inspiring. Usually we hear, and I think this one would go to Samilia. We hear people say that even after the death of a loved one, the pain is not felt as bad as the moment everyone goes away
Oh
and
yes.
leaves you with your grief.
Oh yes.
Life has moved on for everyone except you. How real
Yes.
is that?
Very real. When our Ghanaian system is such that the moment you go through that period of the death of a loved one,
Hmm.
everybody moves in. You have family members, people you haven't seen in years. Everybody moves in. You have your auntie from the village, you have your grand auntie from here. Everybody moves in. So the period between the death and the funeral, everybody's around. You don't spend a minute by yourself. The only free time you have is if you go to the bathroom. People are in your space 24/7. They share the bed with you. You eat together, you do everything, because I think they think you should not be alone. I mean, obviously you should not be alone. So everybody is around you. And then after the funeral, maybe a week later, after everything has died down, everybody moves on. They all go back to their lives. And you are left alone for the first time after the person is gone. My first this thing was the first night I spent alone. Everybody right after the funeral. I mean, on my bed there were like 4 or 5 of us on my bed. Then a week, yes. Then a week after the funeral, everybody went back to their lives. They went back to school. They went back to work. They went back to where they are posted. Everything. And then the first night, the room that you share with your husband, you alone are sleeping there the first time. I mean, you get calls. Oh, I remember my mother called me. Oh, no, no, ma'am. Beda me chain. And I'm saying, there be me, yes, I be coming home. And it wasn't easy. The first night wasn't easy. The subsequent nights were a lot easier, but you feel you are in a vacuum of your own pain, a vacuum of loneliness. You feel like it's you everybody has moved on and they'll be like, oh, yeah, oh, and at that time when you cry, people get uncomfortable. Before the funeral, when you cry, it's normal. But after the funeral, when you cry, people get uncomfortable. So you yourself learn not to let because everybody is walking around on eggshells around you anyway. So you don't want them to also keep on feeling bad for you, and so you are left alone. You see them moving on with their lives. You're like, so am I going to be left here, or do I chase after them to be able to get out of this pit that I'm in? It is a very real situation. Very,
Wow.
very real situation.
Now that you bring that up, let me ask, do you think that is healthy though? I know it's a beautiful culture. I know it supports their giving in that time. But, well, personally, I think I would have loved the space right from the onset because the sudden having the whole house to myself will be a big deal. And
Yeah.
as you said, people are tiptoeing around you, and so you are grieving, now you are also having to care about others and how uncomfortable they feel around you and your emotions. Do you not think that we should all learn to, even if not even if we want to stay there, still give room for the person to cry, scream, do whatever they want to do, even in that time? Because I think leaving them and overnight finding themselves in this vacuum you described, I think that's quite painful.
It is our culture. Can you imagine I don't know where you're from, but
I'm a fancy
you're
from
fancy
Elmina. Yeah.
from Bremen.
Elmina.
From Elmina. Okay.
Hmm.
So imagine your auntie from Elmina comes that, oh, God forbid, Wati be, and so she's coming to help for the funeral, and then you'll be like, the gate will not be opened.
Yeah.
You get it? There are certain things that modernity cannot go there.
Yeah.
Like there are certain rules. For instance, a widow or like a widower shouldn't go out after 7 p.m. You shouldn't during like the public, maybe 1 week or funeral. You're not supposed to greet anybody. There are certain things. You immediately there are people there to enforce. They are enforcers to make sure you follow the rules. You get it? So
Yeah.
there are certain things that you go through the culture as we know it.
Yeah.
And the culture has its good sides and bad sides.
Mm.
For instance, I found out that you know how everybody comes to say somebody passes, everybody comes around to come and greet and find out what happened and what was the hello.
Hello, hello. Do you see me? Yeah.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello. I can hear
Yeah.
you and I can see you. Do you hear me as
Okay.
well? Okay. You were telling me about Boeing Amania.
Yes. Everybody, you by the time between the time of the person's death and the funeral, we could bow money like 1,000 times because everybody who comes, we tell the same story. And according to a friend anthropologist, apparently that is therapy for us. Because
Okay.
once you keep repeating the story, every time you repeat it, a little bit of your pain goes out.
Okay.
So you keep telling, I
Okay.
mean, going to see a therapist and paying a therapist over and over to tell them what is going on in your head
Okay.
and your emotions. That's the same thing we are doing in that process. So we haven't put a science to it.
Mm.
But so there are certain things that we go through that culturally we haven't documented as helping us, but it does help us.
Mm.
So boy
Mm.
and man telling people every time they come, oh, so what happened? Oh, we woke up this morning and so had passed and had turned to the left and God had called him. And we have so many different ways of describing death. So we keep saying it over and over and over and over. Every time we say it, a little bit of our pain goes out. Every time we say it, a little bit of our pain goes out. Before we realize it, they said time heals. I said no, it's God who heals. Every time we do it, we are
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah. 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 That's such a good
So
point. I've never heard that. But
yeah,
Yeah.
yes, I can understand how that works where you are repeating the story and
over
you're
and
telling
over
it. Yeah.
and over.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Church, let me come in.
Okay. Go on. Go on.
Hello, Church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Go on.
I think that traditions and certain things should be written down and passed on well. Because there are certain traditions that when you ask them, why do we do, we the white people, we want to know everything. Because
Yeah.
it's like by 6 o'clock you have to be at home and you are supposed to eat alone. You are not,
Oh, you,
there
you
are
mean
certain
when you've been
traditions that
widowed?
when you've been widowed at that time before the burial, they say you are supposed to eat alone. And that if you eat with someone,
Okay.
your husband might be eating with you, so you are supposed to eat alone. You understand? I remember one of the times I was telling Marty that no, even when me was alive, I was eating with a particular friend every Sunday to eat fufu. So he's aware we be eating food together. No, that is how we came to meet it. And so it's like sometimes you question, you are not supposed to bath after sex. You are not supposed,
Yes.
and sometimes it's like you really want to put your head
Why?
in that. So why this?
Yeah.
Why that? But no one seems to give you an answer. All that they say is that that is what we came to meet, and that is what it has to. But I really appreciate, like as Samuela has explained, the manner, but what it really happened. So I think that casting my mind back, yes, that was very helping. That was helping.
Yeah.
You understand? So
Yeah.
if some of these
Yeah.
traditions could be explained to we Y2K people now, we would really appreciate it. You understand? It's like
Yeah.
you have to do this, you don't have to do this, and then the
we
ring
we
has
will
to
we
be
will come we will
removed.
come to the ring. We will come to that's our next
Okay.
our next topic. We'll come to the ring, but you've made a good point there. How I wish I had an elderly person on to explain some of the things to us because I personally I think I'm gonna have a lot of problems with that when it comes to that. But um hearing Samilia explain the boying and money over and over, making sense, I think it's helped me
Yeah.
to then think that there might be a good reason why these things were
Yeah.
put in place because I could imagine not wanting to talk. I've said it once. Whoever wants to continue should continue talking. So yeah, it's a good thing to hear that perspective on things. But yes, that will take us to the wedding ring. I mean, the ring is that symbol of love, the and dedication that you have for each other. And as I mentioned in the first episode, choosing what to do with it after your spouse passes away, I reckon it's not an easy decision to make. And even before you get there, you don't think about it, that what am I going to do with my ring if my wife or my husband passes away? And it's not something many of us can easily decide to do. But in your opinion and experience, when do you think is the ideal time to take off your ring? And must you at all cost take it off? Like, what, how do you do that, even including the belongings of your spouse, your husband's? Did you just decide to take them, or tradition made you do it? How did you get around it? That's what I basically want to know. So whichever of you is ready to talk about it, yes, I'd appreciate that. Dorinda, I think you started it, so you can go ahead with the
Okay,
ring.
so um, for me, the ring was taken off at his at church when we stood around him for the family to close the casket. That was when I
Oh,
was called, and the women asked me to remove the ring, and they placed my hand 3 times on his heart, and they asked me to remove the ring, and I removed it. But I was told they were supposed to put it in the casket, but they just asked me to remove it. So 5 years. So 4 months ago was when the family came to look at his belongings after almost 5 years, and then they asked of the ring, and I gave it to them. So somewhere the view has to go to the cemetery, go and put it there. Others who said I can use the locket. Others who said I can just sell it and use it to pay the kids fee. So it's with me, and I've not decided yet what to
okay.
use it for.
But
But
after
I
after the
have to remove
funeral,
the
they
ring.
asked you to take it off.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Immediately before they close the casket, they asked me to take it off because
Okay.
it's assumed that that is the symbol, that is the link between the two of you. So to death do us part, it means that the ring has to pass from your hand.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And for me,
Okay.
I was okay with it. I didn't have an issue removing the ring.
Right. And if you say that few months ago is when they came for his belongings, then almost 5 years, it means you still had his belongings. Is that right?
Yes, and
Okay.
they didn't come. They just came to look at the things. I still have it.
Okay.
Even today,
Okay.
the boys were worrying me. They want to go and take something from it. I still have it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
yeah,
Wow. Okay. Samilia, how about you? What's your opinion on that?
The ring. Mine too was after the funeral. Mine wasn't
Right.
during the funeral. It was after the
Okay.
funeral, and my family was like, "Well, this is till death do us part. He's gone. So what do you do with the ring?" Because I was still wearing it, and they were
Okay.
like, "No, it's not. It's not the best to wear it. So you take it off and decide what you want to do with it."
Right.
So we took it off, and I still have it. I've kept it somewhere. I haven't looked at it in a long time, but I still have it somewhere. Yeah, and After the 1 year celebration, his family, his family came for his things. According to tradition, a husband is yours till he dies. Then the body belongs to the family. So it's the family who decides. So his family came for his things a year after the funeral. That's when they decide what they'll do with you, the wife.
Yes.
Whether they will marry you into the family or they'll divorce you. Did you hear of that?
Yeah.
So they'll decide. So for the first year, apparently they're supposed to give you a kohuma, give you money every month.
Okay.
But after the first year, they can decide, okay, take your trouble and go. Or
Right. Right.
they can continue to take care of you. Yes.
Okay.
So
So I
yeah, after
take
a
it
year,
that then that's traditional practice we have in place
yes.
in Ghana, that
Yes. So for the first
if
year, the family, if they want to, they will take
okay.
care of you.
Okay.
They will
But
help you out
how
with
do you feel about it? Do you think that it should be the widow or widower's decision to maybe want to use the ring as a locket, or want to put it somewhere, or want to still have it on? Do you think it should be the decision, or it should be the decision of the family?
it should be your decision. You're a grown person. I mean, you're a grown man or woman. You can decide what you want to do with it. But you know how opinionated our elders are here.
Yes. Yeah.
Very opinionated, and they won't hold back
Yeah.
their their judgment. They will let you know. And I mean, if you say any say, and I mean, if you say any say, they will say it. They will say it long enough and hard enough that if you want your own peace, you just
Yeah.
listen to what they have to say and just get over it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in that
At the
moment,
time,
you don't have strength.
we follow advice not because we think the advice is best, but because we want to keep the peace.
Yeah. You don't have
Yeah,
strength in
you're
that
right.
time to be
No, just
arguing.
argue. You pick your battles.
Yes. Yes. You pick your battles. That's so true. You pick your battles because I feel that it will be equally traumatic that somebody walks up to say, take off that ring, and
Yeah,
it's he being he going, it's traumatic enough.
yeah,
So the least you want to know is, whilst I haven't even been able to get my head around it, and then
yeah.
you're asking that I should take off what signifies our love, which I think to some extent it has to be reviewed, if it can be reviewed, because it's not pleasant. It's a bit not nice, if I'm being honest, because it's such a big trauma that the person is going through. Getting it takes months, and people don't even get their head around the person is really gone, and then you are saying take off the ring, But I wonder if they do that to men, the widowers. I wonder if that is done to widowers as well.
I don't know too many widowers who take off their rings. They
There you
can wear
go.
it 3 4 years and nobody
There you
says
go.
anything.
There you go. So I
Yeah,
feel that there is a bit of bias there, even if we are saying that's tradition and that's what it's supposed to be, then it should have been both ways. Because if
Yes,
it's
I
true
think
that,
people who are yes, I think people who are older still wear their rings.
yes,
People who think they don't want to
yeah,
marry again. Because
yes,
yeah.
I have
because,
older widows
yeah,
who still wear their rings.
yeah,
But because I think we are young, you know, so it's assumed that when you wear your ring, if you are telling everybody off that you're engaged and married. But
but
once there is
but that
no
should be
ring,
your
it
decision
just can come
anyway.
around.
That should
Well,
be your decision, because even with the men, I'm just thinking, the way women are treated, widows are treated, is not the same as they treat widowers. I doubt they walk into the widower's home and take over and decide everything that needs to. They would
No,
respect the family, yes, but I don't think you can tell the man to take off his ring.
no,
Yes, you can't do that. I mean, it's sad. And in the culture, if a man dies, the woman killed the man. But if a woman dies, hardly would I hear that a woman is dead and they said the man killed her. But you find it that way when it's a woman. Oh, na otete no dodo. Oh, no cry. All of that. But they
yeah,
would never ever say that, oh, the man, unless the man it was known to be abusive or something.
yeah,
Even that, they might not even maltreat him so much during the funeral if he has money to do the burial and take care of everything. They will still so him. So I think this whole thing about is women doing it to women, it comes in play to some extent, and I wish there was a law that reviews all of these things, because it's just not fair. But anyway, that's it. So that is a good point. It means that we get to think about this, that is going to happen. When it happens, you don't have the strength to fight. Not that you don't want to fight, but it's not a battle that's necessary to carry through. So yes, that's understandable. Now let's go on to the one of the most important things that we want to talk about, the nighttime silence. The nighttime silence. And even with that, I'm not necessarily talking about love making or intimacy, but getting home in the evening with no one else to pour your heart to discuss intensely how your day has been, to sleep at night and turn around and realize that that side of the bed is empty. Samilia, how do you cope with that kind of loneliness and lonely nights?
I had diarrhea for the first 6 weeks after my husband passed.
Wow.
Constantly. Because it's the first thought that comes to your mind when you wake up. You know, when your first thoughts, the rushing of thoughts into your mind, it was enough to send me straight. I mean, I constantly had it. And then, so the hard times were at dawn and then in the evenings. Because evenings, he was my late husband was my friend. Above everything else. That's what I recall about him. We could talk we could call each other 3, 4, 5 times a day. In traffic, I see something, I call, hey, me who where who, or you hear something on the news. Hey, yes, it say, see what it. Hey, we were each other's friends. We talked about everything. We could talk about everything and nothing. Somebody you can talk to for 2 hours, 3 hours. It's like, what were we talking about? You don't even remember. And that kind of relationship of him being your friend, and now, even when he wasn't, his voice was going and he couldn't talk as much, I was still talking. I mean, we could talk. And he couldn't reply, but you could see he's trying to, and we enjoyed each other's company. And all of a sudden that company is gone. You don't have any, you come home from work and to a dark house, you have to switch on the lights, and nobody to listen to what you have to say, talk about what happened during the, when he first died. I used to talk to the wind. Like, I would say, and I would him say, see. But that one too quickly, it was pointed out that I shouldn't do that.
Wow.
That it will become part of me. So I'll be walking outside, I'll be talking to myself. So to have that nighttime silence, and that silence was a very painful time. It took me a while. I'll say close to about a year or so before I could come to the realization that, there's nobody to listen to you, or talk back, or sometimes you're like, let the person live and even argue with you. Nobody to
Yes.
argue with you,
Yeah.
nobody to fight with you, nobody to talk to you. It's trying. It's trying. It's painful. It's lonely.
Wow. I mean, listening to you, all I can think of is this whole cherishing the time that you have together.
Yes.
I'm
Oh, yes.
getting I'm getting to understand it greatly. Well, let's just see what people are saying. Thank you so much for sharing that experience, because that is so real. Coming home to a dark room, a dark home, switching on the lights, sitting by yourself. That is another life altogether that you need to adjust to. And I suppose that will be very hard to cope. Um, Right. Our time is up. I've just been prompted that very soon we should be wrapping up. We had so much to discuss, to talk about anniversary celebrations, the role church plays, and but unfortunately we don't have time. But it has been a very fruitful discussion. Let me just go through a few things people have on here. I have Bernadette saying again that enforcers are women. They can't enforce it on the men. That is so true. Gifty Gifty says this must be real. Talking about it will surely help you heal. I'm sure she wanted to say true. You cannot deny the reality if you keep retelling it. That is so true. That is very true. Thank you so much for your comments. I haven't had any questions come up. Unless I've missed them, I'm sure we would answer them later. I think we've spoken a bit about society. So, just in wrapping up, let me just ask, what is Valentine Day like for you, Samilia? Valentine, Christmas, that was your friend. That was your best friend.
I married an Ashanti man. He didn't do Valentine. His thing was like every day is Valentine. So you will not find him bringing you
Same
flowers
here.
on Valentine's Day. You ask and you'll be like, I say every day a Valentine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
for me, Valentine
Yeah.
wasn't really an issue for me because
Yeah.
I didn't really celebrate Valentine.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But for me,
Dorinda.
it was the
Okay.
Christmas holidays.
Christmas.
Yes, for Christmas because we were big on Christmas. We got married around Christmas time. Our home was always celebratory around Christmas time. So it was Christmas that was tough.
Mm.
Christmas that was tough.
Wow. Dorinda, briefly tell me about Father's Day. What is Father's Day like?
For me, we're not, as was a typical Gaman and a bit of a can. He living in all the can places. So can you imagine the two mixtures? So didn't have celebrations. And his birthday was with his twin sister because they are twins. Every time he forgets and his twin sister rather will call him and wish him a happy birthday. He was not a celebrant type or that
Right.
kind. So we are cool. But the only time I used to make him was he picking me after work. So
Yeah.
that was when I used to cry. When I need to drive alone, go home, I'll park somewhere and really, really cry my heart out. So that was when I really miss it, him. I mean, after work, when or going to work in the morning, that's when I really miss it, him. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that makes it a little bit easier and comfortable if they are not that type of people, because even the death anniversary is hard enough to add Valentine and to add all of those as well. So I'm glad to know that that hasn't added to your grief. But one last very important thing I want to know, Dorinda, especially Dorinda, I know you found love again. You have found love again.
Okay.
And what does loving again look and feel like for you? Was there guilt? Was there peace? How did your journey into allowing yourself to feel again and love again feel like? Did you have any fear of loving and losing the person? What has it been like?
Yes, I did. I did. I did. I did. Honestly, with me, I wouldn't have gotten to try because I've been a very independent woman even before I got married to David, you know. But I think from day one when his demise, people otherwise him, and I always say yes, I'll marry again. Even before he was buried, no people would joke like I said yes, because before he died, we used to talk about when someone dies, you should move on with your life. I said he actually prepared my mind. So right from day one, I said yes, I'll marry again. But along the line, the emotions of losing someone, it was so tough. So I decided to close my mind. But the boys, I always say, God bless them. They were always praying on my head. God, bring us a new daddy, bring mommy. So I had to jump into it. And I could hear my auntie praying at dawn. And God give Dorinda a new husband. And so I had to now jump into their wagon. You
Yeah.
understand? So that was how come. Then 2 years ago, I met this nice man, a pastor, a businessman, but having terms with settling down because I told myself I was going to mourn him for 5 years, you
Mm,
know, and I just told myself that I want to stay single for 5 years. So this year was beginning of the 5 years of me mourning him. And so 2 years ago when he came around, I just shut the door on him because I wasn't emotionally and mentally prepared. But beginning of this year, I think my body started misbehaving. I felt very lonely. I hadn't felt that lonely before. My boys were around, but I felt extremely lonely, as if I was getting sick. It's like I needed someone to talk to, someone to be chatting with. So that was when I had to call him and say, that, can we be friends? You understand? He was so shocked. You understand? So that was how,
and that's how
I
you give
mean,
it a chance.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That's
yeah. And
so
I'm
beautiful to
happy,
hear.
and I'm thank God, yeah, for his life. Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful to have given yourself that chance. How about you, Samilia?
What is the question again?
Oh, well, with Dorinda, I knew Dorinda had found love again, so I just
Okay.
wanted to know how she was able to bridge herself there, and well, if you haven't, or you don't have plans of that, or not have no plans of marrying, or
Oh,
no,
if I find a good man, why not?
at the end of the day, what I really want to ask is, do you think it's possible to love again and peacefully
Oh
live
yes.
alongside your
Oh
grief?
yes.
Because
Oh
there are
yes.
people out there watching. Some people feel, if I should love somebody else, it's almost like I don't love my husband. But I think there is a way you can bridge the two,
Yeah.
love alongside grieving
Yeah.
the person that you've lost, and that's what. So
It is very, very possible to love
very
again.
possible.
To
That's so
find
good.
someone who will make you forget the pain you've been through. And I'm sure my sister is going through it right now. She's been restored in the love department.
Oh, thank you. And
So
we
it
pray
is
that,
possible.
Samilia, the next time we have a chance to talk again, we'll be talking about how love is also going. The Lord will come through. All too soon, our time is up. Our session is gonna end soon. Oh my God, I had so much I wanted us to discuss, but it's good we've taken our time to exhaust what we talked about as well, and not just be scanty about it. And thank you all so much who have stayed with us throughout this session, your comments. And well, today surprisingly we didn't have any questions. It means that you two ladies have really offloaded everything clearly enough. And so yes, I'm glad that everybody got what they wanted out of this. And who I can't thank you two enough for going through what you have gone through to tell us the story, to build us up, to get us, prepare us for that day when it comes, to make, like I said, to make the journey a little step easier for when we get there. And I'm so grateful that you do this. Just 1 minute, tell us, what advice would you give to a new widow? Maybe Samilia, if you could start with us,
Okay.
what advice will you give to a new widow?
I'll give Dorinda. Is she Dorinda?
Oh, she's is she gone?
No, she's
Okay,
back.
all right, okay. Do you want Dorinda to start? Okay, Dorinda, what advice would you give a new widow? I think she's frozen a bit at the moment.
Oh,
Right, we lost Dorinda, so
okay. My advice to a new widow that God is really the husband to the widow
mm,
and the father to the fatherless. They said time heals, but no, it is God who heals.
mm,
Because when you go through the fire, He is with you. Through the storm, He is with you. So through it all,
mm,
no matter how painful it is, know that God is with you and He will heal you
he will heal you.
and restore you.
Mm. Thank you so much. He will heal you and he will restore you. God bless you, Samilia. You've been a blessing. It's almost like I've known you. I know you as SP, but that's all I knew. But today, oh my God, to let us into your life, such delicate, intimate aspect of your life. I am so grateful. God bless you. God bless you. God
Thank you.
bless you.
Thank you.
And a
Thank
big shout out to my hubby, director,
you.
producer of the Be
Yay!
Intentional with Cheska show, Casey Consult and Casey Music, Mr. Kenneth Apple. The guy is a rare gem.
Yes.
He does the work, and I just get to sit here to talk. So thank you so much, Ken. Do you want to show your face? Oh, he doesn't want to. So yeah. So thank you for all the help and the support and for letting this happen. God bless you all. Have a lovely, lovely, lovely week ending into weekend, and stay tuned. There will be more coming your way. Make sure you share this video with your friends. Somebody is going to need this. This year, next year, few years' time, 5 years, 10 years, some of us are still going to need this. So make sure you share it out there. God bless you all. Love you. Bye.
Intentional about